Hello, good morning or good afternoon kung anong oras ka man nanonood. And this lecture will be about colonial architecture in the Americas. When we're going to talk about the whole continent of America, North America, Central America, and the Southern or South America. So here are some examples, but before we talk about the architecture, pag-usapan muna natin kung ano ang history ng colonization dito sa part na to ng mundo, which they call then the New World. The European colonialism started as early as the 1550s. In this map, we can see here, nag-start na mag-colonize ang Russia. So Russia started, itong purple, itong part na to, yan yung territory nila originally. And then, the rivalry of Spain and Portugal. Yan yung nauna na mag-colonize going to the west. And as we can see here, Spain has successfully reached the Philippines. And pagdating dito kasi, they're trying to find routes going to the east. And there have been theories of yung pwede mong baybayin o ang baybayin going to the west, makakarating ka sa east because the earth is round. So not many people believe that at the time. And by this time, proven na siya. Kasi na-reach na nga yung Philippines going through the Atlantic Ocean and then crossing the American continent. So by this time, Spain has conquered the Central Americas and the parts of South America. And then Portugal has started claiming its own territories as well. France has just started, and then the United Kingdom, in this case, England and part of the neighboring islands. So may ongoing pa na rivalry between the two pero hindi pa sila nag-expand during this time. And then, as we can see here, in 1754, a span of 2 centuries, ito na ang nangyari. So, France and United Kingdom started developing their naval capabilities, and they also started claiming territories to the west as well. So, ang pattern na makikita natin dito, so Russia spread to the east, claiming what is their territory right now. So, yung buong yan, hanggang ngayon, halos yan na yung territory nila, na-claim nila. And they were also able to maintain it. And then, pag tiningnan naman natin ang Netherlands, they also started spreading out as well. Pero limited lang. We have several islands in the Caribbean na pagmamay-ari ng certain European nations. And then Portugal, nag-spread na siya. So this area is what we can identify now as Brazil. And Spain has strengthened his hold sa South America and also sa Central America, claiming what we see now as Mexico. And this part here is now Florida, if I'm not mistaken, and the Bahamas and some of the islands here. So may kanya-kanyang pagmamay-ari na sila dito kasi yan yung una nilang nakita. So those were the first parts of the New World that was visible to them, that they discovered in a way. And then so yan yung lawak ng territory nila. As you can see here, most of the territories conquered and the colonies are coastal areas. So dyan sila nagsimula kasi nga nag-develop na sila ng navy nila, kanya-kanyang navy nila na develop na. So naturally, babaybayan nila kung nasaan yung waterways and conquer territories along those waterways. So as we can see here, it's very interesting here that the United Kingdom, dito sila nag-focus. Pero grabe din yung spread nila at this time. They have territories in India. So halo-halo pa yan. So at first they weren't claiming the land. It was una trade muna, and then eventually kinolonize na nila or inannex na nila as part of their property. So yun yung naging trend. So at first it was, may motivation sila for doing that. We'll get to that later. And then by 1822, ito na yung mga sakop. So eventually, the United States claimed independence. Nilabanan nila yung mga previous na colonizers, and then the descendants of the natives and the colonizers. So there's really long pages of history involving the United States. But as of this year 1822, ito na yung property ng United States. So they no longer belong to the Europeans. At pagdating dito, the other parts as well claimed independence. South America claimed independence, but United Kingdom still has colonies all throughout the globe. So pagdating dito, yan yung mga na-maintain nila na mga colonies nila. And then France ganun din. So in Africa, nag-maintain din sila ng sarili nilang colonies. So by this time, 1822, mapapansin nyo yung part ng Alaska still belongs to Russia. Pag inikot natin to sa globe kasi, konting tumbling na lang from Russia, nasa Alaska ka na. So magkadugtong yan, ilang kilometers na lang yan across, and then nasa Russia na siya. And eventually, the United States was able to acquire this property here. Pero if we're going to see nung una, ayan, okay, and parts of Canada belong to the United Kingdom, pero nag-spread out din ang France dito. Kaya some areas in Canada speak French, not English. So yan na yung mga mas updated. Pero kung mapapansin nyo dito sa Philippines, at this time, malakas-lakas pa rin yung kapit sa atin ng Spain. So matagal pa bago tayo na turn over into the United States. So mahaba-habang history. Anyway, so yan yung naging trend ng European colonialism. As we can see here, coastal areas na una, and then nag-spread out papasok dun sa mainland. Now let's talk about the motivations for spreading out and colonizing other lands. So the colonialism of the New World being the continent of America, it's motivated by the prospect of new and less expensive supply of spices. So at the time, in the 1700s, in the 1600s, spices are really a big thing. So hindi lang siya yung pampalasa ng pagkain, but also for medicinal properties. During the time, advancement in medicine means that you need to discover more spices and apply them as medicine or herbal medicine. Kaya madami mga Europeans, they go to the east. There has already been an established trade to the east. And what we know now as the Silk Road, hindi lang naman silk ang tinatransport from the Orient going to Europe. It's also the spices. And there are certain routes from Europe, from the Mediterranean, going to Africa, and then pababa ng India and the Southeast Asian countries. That's to import certain goods kagaya nga and one of the most notable goods that were in demand were spices. So nung naging mas popular yung theory that the world was round, it wasn't yet proven. So inexplore nila tong option nito to really look for more resources. And by the time na dumating ang Europeans sa America, 37 million ang population ng mga natives. So itong pictures na to, ito talaga ang Native Americans. Tinawag sila na Indians, pertaining to the area as part of the Indies or the West Indies. Parang naging annex or extension. So doon nanggaling yung name. Pero dahil nga sa pagdating ng Europeans, as we know now, kaya nga madaming mga turista ang pinagbabawal ngayon to go to indigenous tribes or yung mga hindi masyadong exposed sa civilization, kasi nga we can bring diseases to them. So pagdating ng mga Europeans, they thought they weren't harming the natives, pero dala nila yung mga pathogens, mga bacteria, viruses na hindi equipped ang katawan ng native population. So 80% of the native population died in the 17th century dahil nga na-introduce yung mga diseases na to by European colonizers from Spain, from England, from France, from Portugal. Itong mga diseases na to, they were already vaccinated from. So one of the examples is smallpox. So vaccinated na sila by that time. They were already immune to it. And then pagdating nila dito, na-introduce yun dito sa mga natives. Hindi equipped yung katawan nila to handle the new diseases, the diseases of the old world. So nagkaroon ng na-decimate talaga most of the population sa disease pa lang. And not to mention yung ongoing na armed conflict between the natives and the foreigners. So syempre they have to defend their land from these people. Madaming strategies na ginawa ang mga Europeans to establish trade. So one of them is by diplomatical means, parang kinaibigan yung mga natives, gave them gifts, yan. Pero may mga natives na naging hostile din. And so, to defend their land, mas advanced yung weapons ng Europeans at the time. And then, so yun, may mga conflict na nangyari, causing the native population to die. And those that survived were then turned into slaves. So, medyo masalimuot na history ito. And then the development, also meaning the exploitation of the Americas. So itong mga European countries na to, they were competing against each other kung sino ang makakasakop ng mas madaming land, and also to bring resources back to Europe. So na-displace yung mga American natives, and they were also overcome by disease. So pakonti yung population nila. And yung land nila, pakonti na rin ng pakonti. As well as yung mineral wealth nila. So, nakita ng Europeans yung mga natives na nakasuot ng mga ginto-ginto at pilak and all these metals that they think were precious. Pagdating dito sa Americas, very common na lang yung naka gold jewelry sila. So, syempre, nagkaroon sila lalo ng interest to mine the land. From the spices, nakita nila na may iba pang use for the land aside from spices at saka pagmimina. And as the world evolved, as the European culture evolved, nagkaroon ng ibang taste or ibang longing need for other things like sugar, cacao, coffee. Yan. So, nung time na yon, yung coffee kasi, it originated in the Arabic Peninsula. So, along the Europeans' journey to the east, and nakakuha na sila ng sample ng coffee. So, it kind of became a social symbol that you have these goods. So, aside from coffee, um, syempre, kapartner niyan is sugar. And then, at the same time, na-discover na din nila yung taste ng chocolate or ng cacao. So, nakita nila yung America as a very, very vast land na pwede kang magkaroon ng agricultural investment. So, nagkaroon sila ng mga plantations. And this is what largely influenced yung architecture style of this century. So, dahil yung mga European settlers, hindi naman din sila lahat willing to do manual labor. Okay. And nag-spread na sila sa Africa. So nagkaroon sila ng slave trade during that time. So it's really a very dark time in history na ang mga tao ay kinikidnap or binibili, and they are transported as slaves. Wala na silang freedom. Pero hindi lang naman ito yung instance that there were slaves. Actually, it's been going on throughout history, kahit before pa ng colonization. Kapag natalo yung tribo mo sa isang labanan, automatic patay ka or slave ka. So, it's been going on all throughout. Pero nung kinolonize ng Europe ang America, it's mas lalong lumaki yung scale ng pag-i-import ng mga slaves, and most of them are from Africa. So, bakit sa Africa kinuha? Kasi yung mga Native Americans, yung mga Indians, tumatakas. So, kinakapture sila, ginagawa silang slave. Pero dahil malapit lang sila sa mga tribo nila, meron silang mga chiefdoms in the area, tumatakas sila, bumabalik sila doon sa kanilang families and sa kanilang tribe. Unlike sa African slaves, malayo na yung babalikan nila. So, talagang nag-capitalize itong mga colonizers na to sa hopelessness ng mga tao. Kasi, what else are you going to do? And mahirap na wala ka ng access pabalik. So in a way, it's really hopeless to go back to Africa. And generations of the slaves, pag pinanganak ka sa family ng slaves, yung magiging anak mo, magiging apo mo, will also become slaves. So, yun yung naging trend. Malungkot, ang hirap isipin na nangyayari ito before, but it's part of our history. It's part of the history. Let's see the European settlement in New England. So, nakita natin yung map kanina. Ito yung part na to is in Virginia, nasa east coast of the United States that we know today. So, tinawag nila yung settlement na yun na New England. Actually, hindi lang naman mga Englishmen na nandun. May mga Dutch and English Puritans. Most of them are Protestants, French Calvinist, may mga Catholics din, may mga Swedes, Jews, and English Anglicans. Nakita nila dito yung religious tolerance na wala sa Europe. If we can remember histories, for example, in England, in France, in Germany, nagkakaroon ng clash between Protestants and Catholics, and nagkaroon ng reformist and counter-reformist movement that in times were bloody and violent. So, instead na mag-endure sila during that kind of situation, nag-decide na lang sila, okay, may chance ako to start a new life elsewhere, and nabuo nga yung New England. And eventually, nagkaroon din ng New France, nagkaroon din ng and pagdating nila sa New World, mas naging tolerant sila kasi halo-halo na nga yung community. So, isa pa sa mga notable dito na events is eventually United States fight for independence. So, yung state na yon, as we can see here in the map, itong so dito sa part na to, this was New England before. So, British descendants of British immigrants and halo-halo na yan, European immigrants, and then later on, they identify themselves as the first Americans. Sad to say na displaced na yung natives, pero eventually they asserted their independence. Pero during this time in 1794, yung hold naman ng Spanish, we can see here, this is Florida, Texas is around here somewhere, and then parts of the United States that we know now. Before, Spanish colony pa rin siya. Ito, Portuguese colony, and then meron pa ditong colony ang Netherlands, and may mga ano pa dito yung France, meron pa siyang mga properties. So, grabe pa rin yung dominion ng Spain over Central and South America. Pero iba yung storya dito. Ibang storya to. And as we saw kanina, Russia ang may hawak ng Alaska.